The security guard at the towering glass building couldn't believe his eyes. A tiny figure in oversized clothes was standing at the reception desk, clutching a crumpled piece of paper and asking to speak with the CEO about a job. Little Oliver Johnson had never imagined he would need to grow up so fast. At just 5 years old, while other children his age were playing with toys and watching cartoons, Oliver was facing a reality that would challenge most adults. His father, David, had been the family's sole provider, working double shifts at the local factory to support Oliver, his mother Sarah, and his baby sister Emma. Everything changed on that rainy Tuesday morning when David collapsed at work. A massive heart attack had struck without warning, leaving him fighting for his life in the intensive care unit. The medical bills were mounting faster than Sarah could count, and with David unable to work, their small savings disappeared within days. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, and if you love inspiring stories like this, hit that subscribe button for more amazing content. Oliver watched his mother cry quietly in the kitchen each morning, staring at the stack of unpaid bills that seemed to multiply like a monster growing larger each day. He heard her hushed phone conversations with relatives, desperately asking for help that never seemed to come. Her voice would crack as she explained their situation, only to hang up the phone with disappointment etched across her face. He saw how she would skip meals, claiming she wasn't hungry, just so there would be enough food for him and baby Emma. The electricity had already been turned off once, and they were living by candlelight until a neighbor helped them pay to get it restored. Their small apartment felt colder without David's warm presence and steady income. One evening, as Oliver sat beside his unconscious father's hospital bed, holding his large, calloused hand that once felt so strong and protective, he made a decision that would change everything. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence as he whispered promises to his sleeping father. If his daddy couldn't work, then he would have to find a way to help his family. He remembered all the times his father had carried him on his shoulders, making him feel like he could touch the sky. Now it was his turn to be strong. He may have been small, but his heart was enormous, and his determination was unshakable. That night, he barely slept, his mind racing with plans and possibilities, trying to figure out how a 5-year-old could possibly save his family. Oliver had overheard his parents talking about Mr. Harrison, the CEO of Harrison Industries, the biggest company in their small town. His father had always spoken about how Mr. Harrison was a fair man who took care of his employees. In Oliver's young mind, this seemed like the perfect place to start. The next morning, while his mother was at the hospital holding vigil by his father's bedside, Oliver carefully dressed in his father's old dress shirt, which hung on him like a tent, the sleeves so long they covered his tiny hands completely. He rolled them up multiple times, trying to look as professional as possible. He put on his only pair of dress shoes that were 2 sizes too big, stuffing tissue paper in the toes so he could walk without them falling off. He combed his hair with water, trying to make it lay flat like his father's did when he went to important meetings. He folded his father's work ID badge and put it in his pocket for luck, along with a crumpled photo of their family from happier times. Then he set out on the longest and most important walk of his young life, his oversized shoes making soft slapping sounds on the pavement with each determined step. The Harrison Industries building seemed to stretch up to the clouds as Oliver approached. His heart pounded with each step, but he kept thinking about his father lying in that hospital bed and his mother's tired eyes. He had to be brave. His family was counting on him. When Oliver walked through the glass doors of the corporate headquarters, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Employees paused their morning routines, coffee cups halfway to their lips, staring at this tiny figure in oversized clothes making his way to the reception desk with the confidence of someone 3 times his age. Some whispered to each other, wondering if he was lost, while others pulled out their phones, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary. The security guard, Mr. Peterson, had been working there for 15 years and had seen businessmen, politicians, and celebrities walk through those doors, but he had never seen anything quite like this determined little boy with rolled-up sleeves and shoes that seemed to have a life of their own. "Excuse me," Oliver said, his small voice barely audible above the lobby's ambient noise. "I need to see Mr. Harrison about a job, please." The receptionist, Linda, looked down at him with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Sweetie, are you lost? Where are your parents?" "I'm not lost," Oliver replied with surprising confidence. "My daddy is sick, and I need to work to help pay for his medicine and take care of my family. I'm here for a job interview." Word spread quickly through the building like wildfire. Employees began gathering in the lobby, abandoning their desks and meetings, whispering among themselves about the little boy who wanted to work. Phone calls were made, text messages sent, and within minutes, nearly half the office had found an excuse to be in the lobby. Some pretended to get coffee, others acted like they needed to use the copy machine, but everyone wanted to witness this unprecedented moment. Someone called Mr. Harrison's office, and his secretary, initially skeptical, quickly realized this was no ordinary situation. Within minutes, the CEO himself was stepping out of the elevator, his usual stern expression replaced by curiosity and concern. Richard Harrison was a man who had built his empire from nothing through sheer hard work and unwavering determination. At 52, he had amassed a fortune that most people could only dream of, owned multiple properties, drove luxury cars, and had everything money could buy, except the one thing he had always wanted most, a family of his own. He and his late wife, Margaret, had tried for years to have children, visiting specialist after specialist, hoping and praying for a miracle that never came. They had considered adoption multiple times, but somehow never found the right moment. After Margaret passed away from cancer 3 years earlier, the emptiness in his life had only grown deeper, like a void that no amount of success could fill. He threw himself into work, staying late at the office, taking on more projects, anything to avoid going home to his empty mansion. When he saw Oliver standing there, so small and vulnerable yet radiating a strength that defied his age, something stirred in Richard's heart that he hadn't felt in years. "Son," Richard said, kneeling down to Oliver's eye level, "what's your name?" "Oliver Johnson, sir. My daddy used to work at the factory, but he's really sick now. The doctors say he needs lots of medicine and treatments, but we don't have enough money. My mommy cries when she thinks I'm not looking, and my baby sister Emma needs diapers and food." Richard felt his throat tighten as he listened to this little boy's story. The innocence in Oliver's eyes, combined with the weight of responsibility he was trying to carry, was overwhelming. "Oliver, how old are you?" "I'm 5, sir, but I'm very responsible. I can help my mommy with Emma, and I can learn to do any job you need. I'm not afraid of hard work." As Oliver continued to explain his situation, Richard felt something profound happening within him. This child, who should have been worried about nothing more than playground games and bedtime stories, was displaying a level of love and selflessness that put most adults to shame. "Tell me about your father, Oliver," Richard said gently. Oliver's face lit up despite the sadness in his eyes. "Daddy is the best daddy in the whole world. He works really hard to take care of us, and he always reads me stories before bed. He teaches me how to be brave and kind. He says that when you love your family, you do whatever it takes to protect them." Richard's eyes began to well up with tears. He thought about his own father, who had worked tirelessly to provide for their family, and how he had built his company on those same values of hard work and dedication. "Oliver, what if I told you that you've already gotten the job?" Oliver's eyes widened with disbelief. "Really? You mean it?" "But," Richard continued, "this job comes with some special conditions. First, you'll need to go to school and get a good education. Second, you'll need to spend time being a kid, playing, learning, and growing up. And third, you'll need to let me help your family in ways that go far beyond just a job." What happened next would be talked about in the Harrison Industries building for years to come. Richard Harrison, the tough businessman who had negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking, found himself making the most important decision of his life. "Oliver, I want you to know that you're not just getting a job today. You're getting a family. I'm going to make sure your father gets the best medical care available, and I'm going to take care of your mom and baby sister too. But more than that, I want you to be the son I never had." The lobby, which had been filled with whispered conversations, fell completely silent. Employees watched in amazement as their CEO, known for his business acumen and professional demeanor, opened his heart to this brave little boy. Oliver looked up at Richard with tears streaming down his face. "Does this mean my daddy will get better?" "We're going to do everything we can to make sure he does," Richard promised. "And even if the road is difficult, you'll never have to face it alone again." Within hours of making that life-changing promise, Richard had arranged for David Johnson to be transferred to the best cardiac care facility in the entire state. A team of world-renowned specialists was assembled, including doctors who had performed groundbreaking procedures on patients with similar conditions. Money was no object as Richard ensured that every possible treatment option was explored, from experimental medications to cutting-edge surgical techniques. Sarah Johnson, who had been drowning in despair and sleepless nights, suddenly found herself surrounded by hope, support, and medical professionals who spoke with confidence rather than cautious pessimism. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that her husband might actually survive. But Richard's generosity didn't stop there, not even close. He set up a substantial trust fund for Oliver's education, ensuring that this remarkable child would have every opportunity to succeed in life, from the finest schools to university tuition. He also established a comprehensive company program to help other employees facing similar medical crises, inspired by the courage of one small boy who had dared to ask for help. The program, which they named the Oliver Johnson Family Support Initiative, would go on to help hundreds of families over the years. Richard also quietly paid off the Johnson family's debts, covered their rent for the next 2 years, and made sure their refrigerator was always stocked with groceries. But perhaps most importantly, he began spending time with Oliver, teaching him about business, life, and the importance of never giving up on the people you love. 6 months later, David Johnson had made a remarkable recovery. The experimental treatments had worked, and while he would need ongoing care, he was able to return home to his family. But by then, the bond between Richard and Oliver had grown into something beautiful and permanent. With David and Sarah's blessing, Richard legally adopted Oliver, giving him not just financial security but the love of a father who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. Oliver would grow up with 2 fathers, the one who gave him life and taught him courage, and the one who gave him opportunity and showed him that kindness could change the world. Today, Oliver Johnson Harrison is a reminder that heroes come in all sizes, and that sometimes the smallest acts of love can create the biggest miracles. His story teaches us that when we lead with our hearts, when we choose love over fear, and when we have the courage to ask for help when we need it most, extraordinary things can happen. The 5-year-old boy who walked into that office building looking for a job found so much more than employment. He found family, hope, and proof that in a world that often seems cold and uncaring, there are still people who believe in the power of compassion. And Richard Harrison, the successful businessman who thought he had everything, discovered that the greatest success in life isn't measured in profits or achievements, it's measured in the love we give and the lives we touch along the way. What did you think of Oliver's incredible story? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to hit that like button if this touched your heart. Until next time, keep believing in the power of kindness.